The Starship is ready for launch. Well, almost. After several upgrades and successful tests on Booster 9, only a handful of hurdles stand in the way of SpaceX and their dream of making Starship the largest orbital launch vehicle active today. Let's talk about these final few steps and what SpaceX must do for the Starship to take flight once more. Starship is getting ready for its second integrated flight test, and the enthusiasm is quite noticeable. Booster 9 has completed its pre-flight testing successfully, and it's now eagerly awaiting its first stage to join in for the upcoming second launch. Ship 25, which underwent testing a few months ago, has already accomplished some important milestones. The only remaining items on the checklist are the completion of full-stack testing and obtaining the crucial regulatory approval needed for the second flight. Following an initial static fire on August 6th that didn't proceed as planned, SpaceX didn't let that setback disrupt their progress. They conducted a second static fire on August 25th. During the first attempt, 4 engines unexpectedly ceased operation prematurely, cutting short the static fire at just 2.74 seconds, when it was supposed to last for nearly 5 seconds. Swiftly, SpaceX removed the booster from the orbital launch mount and transported it back to the production site. What followed was the installation of a crucial component, a 6-foot-high ring known as the hot staging ring. This ring plays a pivotal role in enabling the hot staging of the upper stage. It is specially designed with openings to release exhaust from the 6 engines located beneath the ship, while it remains connected to the booster. With the hot staging ring securely installed, the booster returned to the forefront, this time with added engine protection around its engines. This protective shield is meant to safeguard the engines during transport. Previously, some engines had sustained damage during transportation in Boca Chica, but this new setup aims to prevent such incidents. The booster then completed its second static fire on August 25th, representing a significant improvement over the first attempt. According to SpaceX, all 33 engines of the booster roared to life, marking quite an achievement. Previous static fires of the Super Heavy had failed to ignite all engines, but this time only 2 engines shut down shortly after ignition, while the remaining 31 powered through the entire 5-second duration. The implementation of the new deluge system and deflector plate had a notable impact on mitigating the power of the test. Upon closer inspection, it's apparent that the flames and thrust were noticeably more subdued in contrast to Booster 7's static fire. Except for some minor damage to nearby installations like a fence, the general area remained relatively unscathed after the test. After this particular test, Booster 9 underwent a series of evaluations, including high engine static fires, 2 spin primes, and 3 cryogenic proof tests. It's worth noting that this is a significantly smaller number of tests compared to the extensive more than 20 tests carried out on Booster 7. This highlights SpaceX's ability to streamline the validation process for these vehicles efficiently. Currently, the booster is making steady progress towards concluding its single-stage test campaign. This progress is essential as it paves the way for the integration of Ship 25 atop the booster. Speaking of Ship 25, it has patiently awaited its turn at the rocket garden since it was rolled back in preparation for the Booster 9 static fire test. The upper stage's first and only static fire involving all 6 Raptor engines occurred on June 26th. Subsequently, much of the recent efforts have been concentrated on the thermal protection systems, TPS. While most of the TPS work was completed before the static fire campaign, the ship still had crane lifting points. However, as these points are no longer necessary, SpaceX has been in the process of removing them. These openings where the crane lifting points used to be are now being filled with TPS tiles to ensure the ship can effectively endure the heat generated during re-entry. In a branding move reminiscent of Ship 24, SpaceX has also added its company logo to Ship 25. It's possible that a serial number print might also be added if SpaceX chooses to continue with a similar branding strategy. In the upcoming final stages of preparation for its launch, the next steps involve transporting self-propelled modular transporters back to the launch site. The stacking of Ship 25 on Booster 9 is expected to take place, most likely, either late this week or early next week. Given the swift turnaround time demonstrated in the booster's handling, the stacking process could be finished in less than 12 hours from the outset of the initial rollout. As for SpaceX's next steps, there are a few potential options on the table, but nothing is set in stone. One possible course of action involves conducting a wet dress rehearsal. This rehearsal is designed to comprehensively validate the ground infrastructure, countdown software, and overall readiness of both the ship and the booster. During the wet dress rehearsal, the vehicle would undergo a simulated launch sequence, progressing all the way to T-10 seconds, which is similar to what was done with Booster 7 and Ship 24. However, the launch sequence would be intentionally aborted at this point. This procedure would require stringent safety measures, including the safe evacuation of methane loads and detailed evacuation plans for Boca Chica Village. Additionally, a flight-like exclusion zone around the launch site would be implemented as part of these safety measures. Alternatively, SpaceX may choose to proceed with a cryogenic test of the entire stack, aiming to confirm its structural integrity following all the adjustments and changes made since the last tanking. The ultimate decision regarding whether SpaceX will undertake one, both, or neither of these tests will hinge on their internal needs and requirements. Currently, SpaceX has not disclosed its final decision. and it will be interesting to see which approach the company takes. In terms of hardware readiness, Booster 9 has been prepared and is ready to launch. However, there's a catch. There are still unresolved questions in the regulatory department that need addressing. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, is currently in the final stages of its investigation into Starship's first flight. Once this investigation report receives approval, the FAA can then provide its assessment on whether it's safe for Starship to conduct further flights, considering all the available documentation. However, the catch is that neither SpaceX nor the FAA has disclosed when this process will ultimately conclude. So it's a waiting game at the moment, and it's not entirely clear whether the regulatory timeline will align with SpaceX's hardware readiness for the second flight. SpaceX has initiated briefings with Mariner safety boards regarding a potential Starship flight on September 8th. It's worth highlighting that this date doesn't necessarily align with the FAA report. It appears to be more of a tentative target that SpaceX is hopeful about for now. Given the complexity of flight restrictions and the need to inform the local community, there are still some pieces of the puzzle missing. SpaceX, of course, intends to provide ample advance notice to the residents of Boca Chica in preparation for a potential flight, ensuring a smooth and safe evacuation procedure leading up to the big day. However, that's not the only development unfolding within SpaceX's plans. In a significant push to ramp up Starship production, SpaceX is fully committed to expanding its Star Factory located at Starbase, Texas, leaving no stone unturned. To make way for this expansion, they started by clearing the path, which involved removing substantial structures that were obstructing this growth. Last week, the SpaceX team executed a double move. First, they bid farewell to the tent situated near Mid-Bay, which had been housing dozens of Raptor 2 engines. These tents are where the production and storage of essential Starship components took place. Furthermore, the Mid-Bay structure itself met its fate and was subsequently demolished to make room for the forthcoming expansion. While this expansion is not directly related to the upcoming test flight, it does highlight the fact that SpaceX intends to accelerate Starship testing and production going forward. There is little doubt that SpaceX is ramping up activity at Starbase in anticipation of the imminent second integrated test flight. There are several minor obstacles left before we can expect takeoff, but there is no denying that we are closer than ever before. Do you think the FAA will let the Starship launch this month? Please share your thoughts in the comments below.